Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. This show is being pre-recorded. Jordan is still working on location this week. I'm really grateful, though, that he's here at a distance to kind of bring us a show. I want to tell you all about it. Let's get down to the starting line. In the next time try this segment, we're going to be talking about using a reproduction seat pan. In the Moto Showcase, take a look at a great 1966 Greaves 250. In the Here's the Problem segment, we're going to be looking at how to drill a piston for a cylinder that has an exhaust bridge. In the What's It Worth segment, a C&J frame XR400. The 522 project continues. I've got a lot of information for you this week. We do have a trivia contest. We will be giving away a book by Keith Geisner, Finding Number 49. As always, we'd ask you to share the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. On YouTube, you can comment AMSOIL. Somebody tonight, a random winner, will get a nice box of AMSOIL stuff that I'm going to send them personally. Also, on YouTube, please subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Whenever you get a chance, tell some friends about it. When you do subscribe, there's a little bell that pops up. You hit that, it's going to tell you when our show comes on YouTube. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors, AMSOIL, Motion Pro, Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty, and of course, Nightmare Racing. This week's Next Time Try This segment is brought to you by Vinco, Keep the Ride Going. I want to give you a few tips today if you're going to be using a new seat pan and replacing your old steel one with a plastic one. There's a couple of things you should keep in mind, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. The seat pan you may be buying probably looks very, very similar to this. You're going to have to take some measurements off of your old seat pan to make sure it's going to line up on your bike correctly. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you cut your front mount out of your old steel pan, cut it out very cleanly. You're going to want to then measure where it was and put it in to the front of your seat. Once you get your old seat bracket off, you're going to want to mount it up at the front of your new seat pan, which will look similar to this. If you notice here, I've used the screws. Now, here's the tricky part, something you got to keep in mind. When you're doing this, you do not want to put regular nuts on the other side. You want to use something like this or something like this. The one on the right is a Fuji nut. The one on the left, of course, is a nylock nut. These will make sure that those nuts will not come loose on the other side of your seat pan. If they come loose, you're never going to be able to tighten them. You don't want them to come loose. Make sure you put them on with a Fuji lock nut or a nylock nut. Now that you've got your seat mount bracket on the front of your pan, you'll know exactly where to put it on the bike. You need that to ensure the alignment of the seat pan. Now, for the back of the mount, you want to make sure you have your two mounts removed from your original steel base. And you're going to want to bolt them on exactly where they go on the back of your frame, like I've done here. Now with your seat pan in place, you can go under the pan and you can see where the mounts are, and you can mark those holes accordingly. If you can't get to the one that's closer to the front of the bike, just mark the one at the back like you see it here, then take a measurement off the bracket and drill your next hole for your other bolt in the front of your seat. That's my tip this week on Next Time Try This. I want to thank Vinco for being a sponsor of the segment. In the Moto Showcase tonight, we take a look at a 1966 Greaves 250 Challenger. The bike belonged to Tim and Cindy Clark, and it was restored by yours truly. It's really an incredible bike when you take a look at it. The frame was constructed in half steel. It's got that aluminum beam down the front. The British did an amazing job with this bike. It was given to me in pretty rough condition, but with some experience and some things going on that I learned along the way, the bike turned out really, really nicely. One of the biggest challenges I had with this bike was finding the correct rims. I remember going to Raber's down in San Jose and spending about 4 hours looking through all the rims that they had that they didn't know what they were for. I was very, very fortunate to find a couple of Greaves rims for this bike. We matched up the paint. The fenders came out beautifully. We rebuilt the whole engine on the bike and did so much more to it. It was a real great experience because the Greaves is not something I had ever worked on before. If you want to see all before, during, and after shots of this bike, please go over to Joe Abadi's Cycle Therapy on Facebook and you'll be able to read all about it. Tim and Cindy Clark, thanks for the opportunity to restore that bike for you. We'd like to feature your bike in the Moto Showcase. Send some pictures into my inbox of whatever you might have. It could be any bike. It could be a show bike, a bike that's special to you, a racer, whatever it might be. Send it in, and in turn, we'll get you a nice sticker pack from fastguystuff.com. And here's the problem segment tonight. It is sponsored by Motion Pro. We'll take a look at some questions, and we'll see if we can't help out a few people here. Cody Calloway, Joe, can you discuss the proper way to drill oil lubricating holes in a piston for a bike with an exhaust bridge? Yes, I can, and I put together some pictures here for you, Cody, so I can explain it all to you pretty clearly. Right here, you can see in the cylinder between those two ports is the exhaust bridge. It's important that lubrication gets in between that bridge and the piston, otherwise your bike will suffer a seizure. In this picture right here, you can see where the piston has already been drilled. What you want to do to accomplish this is put the top end back on the bike, no rings, no circlips, just put the piston on the wrist pin and slip the cylinder gently over the piston. From there, you're going to take a pencil and you're going to mark, just like you see here, a line on each side of that exhaust bridge. You're going to slip the cylinder off, and the piston's going to look just like this when you get it out. It's going to have those two lines going horizontal next to each other. What you want to do is, and this is according to Wiseco, at 375 thousandths, you want to go 375 thousandths of an inch below the lowest ring land. And then you want to make the two holes 375 thousandths apart from one another. There's a slide that I'm going to be putting in here that shows you what size drill bit you should use when you do that. And then you're going to drill it out just like you see right here. Once you get your piston drilled, you need to remove all the burrs from the drilling lubrication holes. You could also take a little 400 or 600 grit wet or dry sandpaper, and you can go around the inside of the piston. Also, you could take a 1/4 inch drill bit with your fingers and just kind of spin it around on the holes you made to deburr them. You want to make sure everything's nice and clean. You can wash it with soap and water. When you're done with it all, make sure it's all good and clean. When you go to put your bike back together, you just finish your top end job the same way you would do it at any other time, but use some of the oil that you use in your premix to lubricate your piston rings when you go to put it all back together. Again, Cody, thank you for the question. Cody's got another question. He also wants to know what's the proper position to install a wrist pin circlip. There's really only two places that circlip should go. When it's open on the end, it should either be at 12 o'clock or at 6 o'clock. Don't put it to the sides. 12 o'clock or 6 o'clock. That's where it goes, Cody. Rick Torres, Joe, perhaps I'm spoiled from riding modern bikes and off-road bikes, but it seems every vintage bike I own has a slippery seat. Do you have any suggestions? You know, Rick, it's really, really ironic that you should send me this question this week. I was having this conversation with a few other guys, and it was just about a week or so ago where one of our viewers, Robert Oscar Pomeroy, sent me a little tip on what he does when it comes to slippery seats. Because on a vintage bike, you know, you're only doing 5 laps, but you know, we're all getting a little bit older. How much strength we have in our hands and in our arms and stuff. It's a lot of work to stay on a bike. So here's what Robert Oscar Pomeroy suggested. He suggested go on eBay and you buy an inexpensive modern gripper seat. He says you can buy them for like KTM's and some other bikes, these aftermarket seat covers. You can buy them for 15 or 20 bucks. What he does is he cuts out a pattern that goes over the top of his vintage seat. He takes it down to his upholster. They sew it all back together. From the side, it looks like a really nice vintage look at, but from the top, you get a little traction on your butt when you're riding your vintage bike around the track. I want to thank Rick Torres for sending that question in, and I want to thank our friend Robert Oscar Pomeroy for sending in that tip. Thanks, guys.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, here to introduce you to the Pro Funnel today. Now the Pro Funnel is a very versatile funnel that makes maintenance tasks on your motorcycle easier, cleaner, and more efficient. Now as an overview, the Pro Funnel has a 1 liter capacity with clear graduation marks listed in ounces, cc's, as well as all the common premix ratios used for 2-strokes in the power sports industry. Now diving into the key features of the Pro Funnel, First, you have this integrated shutoff valve, which allows you to shut off or meter out the flow of fluid. This ball joint and extended spout allows you to get into tight areas. A powerful magnetic strip is convenient for storage on your toolbox or workbench. And this removable lid keeps dirt and debris out of the funnel. The Pro Funnel has a retail price of $32.99 and can be found at your preferred dealer nationwide, so go get yours today.
In the What's It Worth segment, which is sponsored by Preston Petty Products, we'll be telling you more about a Preston Petty special in just a moment. But this week we have a 1979 Honda XR400 that was put together with what this guy claimed to be a C&J frame. I'm going to read this to you a little bit while Jordan goes through the slides, and we're going to learn a little bit more about it. This bike was constructed 12 years ago by myself. The frame is a Red Racer custom chromoly steel reproduction frame of the C&J frame made in the 1970s. The engine is from a 1974 XR500. It was torn down and rebuilt with all the original parts or replacement parts from Honda. The front suspension is off a 1983 Honda CR480. It's got 43 millimeter forks with gold valves. The front hub is also from a 1983 CR480. It's got a double leading shoe front brake. The hubs and the frames were powder coated. The wheels were made by XL. The gas tank is off the 1978 Honda CR250. This bike recently sold on eBay for $4,500 on July 3rd, 2020 from Texas, $4,500. And I'm not really clear on the frame. It says it was a C&J replica frame. If anybody knows more about this bike, I'd like to know more about it so I can tell people here on the show. It does look really trick, and it does look like a C&J frame, but apparently somebody built a replica, and I would like to know who it is. Who is Red Racer that was building these replica frames? That's what I found on eBay this week, $4,500. Preston Petty with their special this week, 10% off across the board on everything. Fenders, number plates, hats, grips, you name it, 10% across the board on everything at the Preston Petty website. And when you do that, Paul's going to throw in a free T-shirt. You're going to give him a call, or he's going to call you to get your T-shirt size. That's going to come in with your order from Preston Petty Products, but you have to contact me to get the code. Contact me, inbox me. I'll send you the code for the Preston Petty product. You'll get yourself a free T-shirt and 10% off across the board on everything Preston Petty offers. The 522 project continues. And you know, some of the things to this bike were done previous to me recording it on the show. If you're not really familiar with this, this is a bike that we're building to replicate the 1974 RC125 that Marty Smith rode to the inaugural 1974 National Championship. We've had a little video on it every week for the past, 6 or 8 weeks or so. And this week, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something I had to do with the cylinder in order to make it work. Now, what you're seeing in the picture right here to the left is a set of 1977 cases. To the right in red, a set of 1980 cases. As you have seen in previous videos, my idea was to mate a 1980 center port reed valve cylinder on a 1977 bottom end. I really thought that the biggest problem was going to be moving the mounting studs on the 77 bottom end to let the 1980 cylinder fit that bike. Yes, that took a lot of doing, but something else was going on along the way, and I thought it was actually going to be easier, but a couple of things got in the way, and I'll tell you about that right now. If you look at where the crank goes through on the 1977 cylinder, on the 1977 case right here, and then you look where the crank goes through on the 1980 case. Both bikes have a 50 millimeter stroke, and I thought I was golden when I saw that, because I'm figuring the rod's not going to change. It's a 50 millimeter stroke. The rod's going to be the same for both bikes. Ironically, it was. But here's where the problem lies. While the cases are different, the crank sits 2 millimeters lower in the 1980 case than it does in the 1977 case. So after moving all the studs, after putting the cylinder on, putting the piston in, which by the way, the wrist pin bearing and the wrist pin itself are the same on a 77 and an 80. I was using a 1980 piston because I had a 1980 cylinder. Everything went together real smoothly until I put the cylinder on the bike and I realized that my piston was 2 millimeters short of top dead center. What did I do? Jordan, next slide. I had to take the cylinder and I had to have a fixture made so I can get the cylinder put into a lathe, get it chalked up securely so I could take 2 millimeters off the base of the cylinder. Taking 2 millimeters off the base of the cylinder will drop the cylinder down. It'll bring the piston up to top dead center. I did a lot of measuring before I did this to make sure the port timing would be the same. I'm probably still off a little bit. I don't think 2 millimeters, according to the measurements I've taken between the 1977 cylinder and the 1980 cylinder. Why I'm not completely sure yet is because the 80 cylinder has a reed valve. So I don't know exactly what I'm getting into just yet there. The only thing I think I may have lost a little bit of is where the ports are on the bottom, the transfer ports at the bottom of the cylinder, where you can see here. I've taken 2 millimeters off, which have made them a little smaller. I'm sure it will be negligible by the time all is said and done. But I now have a cylinder where the piston rises to top dead center, level with the top of the cylinder. I have a bike that has a 50 millimeter stroke, the way both bikes had originally. And I should also mention that the 1977 piston was a 56 millimeter bore and the 55.5 millimeter bore. The 80 was a 56. It didn't matter either way. I'm using a 1980 piston in the bike when I complete the project. Anyway, I want to bring you up to speed on everything I had to go through to make that cylinder work on the 1977 bottom end. Trivia. The first one to comment with the correct answer is going to win. No, Jordan, they're not going to win the bike. They're going to win a book. They're going to win this great book by Keith Geisner, Finding Number 49. It was 48 years ago this week that Evel Knievel attempted to jump Snake River Canyon. What was the name of that steam-powered rocket that Evel tried to attempt to jump the Snake River Canyon in? The first person in the USA to comment with the correct answer will win the book. Put it in the comment. What was the name of Evel Knievel's rocket that he tried to sail across the Snake River Canyon in? In the product spotlight tonight, I want to welcome back Vinco. Well, I don't want to welcome back Vinco because they've never really gone anyplace. Vinco's been with us every month for quite some time now, and we really, really do appreciate all they do for the show and the great products they give us for the product spotlight. This week, we've got a clutch cable, only $22.95 available from Vinco. It fits the YZ250 from 77, also the YZ400, as well as the 7778 IT 200 and the 7778 IT 400. Clutch cable from Vinco, less than $23. Vinco, keep the ride going.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
And this is just how I see it segment tonight. You know, lately we've been seeing a lot of protests going on. We see it in different sports. We've seen it in NASCAR. We've seen it in football, basketball, baseball. We're seeing it a lot. People are taking a position on certain things. And whether you agree with it or not, well, I'm not here to discuss that with you. But here we see some guys kneeling, and I think it's a Formula One race. Here's what I want to ask you. If these protests should continue, once January rolls around, and we're all looking at races, Supercross in particular, at Anaheim 1. When they start playing the national anthem and one of your favorite racers kneels down in order to protest about whatever it is they're protesting on, what are you going to do about that? You're going to keep watching Supercross? You're going to protest the racer? What will your stand be when that time comes, if it should come? Tomorrow on Vintage Motocross Q&A on the Facebook page, I'll be posing that question, and I'm looking forward to seeing your answers. And that's just how I see it. This week in motocross history, sponsored by Nightmare Racing, the finest reproduction Kawasaki plastic on the planet. Visit Nightmare Racing. They're on Facebook. They have a website. Got a lot of great products out there. We're going to be bringing you some specials in the very near future from Nightmare Racing. In this week in MX history, it was 1981. The big game changer came in global motocross. An underdog squad of American Honda riders returned to the FIM, Trophy to Nations, and Motocross to Nations after a 2-year absence. They cobbled together a team with the help of Dick Miller, J.J. Hanfield, Larry Myers, and of course, John and Rita Gregory from JT Racing. Team Honda's Roger DeCoster and Dave Arnold helped put this quartet together as well. Of course, I'm speaking of Johnny O'Mara, Danny Laporte, Donnie Hansen, and Chuck Sun. They traveled to Europe, and they won that race. They won the Motocross to Nations and the Trophy to Nations. They weren't even national champions at the time. Some of the guys who were national champions that could not make it either because their sponsor wouldn't back them or they just didn't feel like going. You had Mark Barnett, Brock Glover, Bob Hanna, Ken Howerton, all amazing talents, and they probably would have made a big difference had they gone, but these 4 guys stepped up. That team got put together, and history was made with Donnie Hansen, Danny Laporte, Chuck Sun, and Johnny O'Mara at the 1981 Motocross and Trophy to Nations, and America went on to win 13 in a row after that. Also, it is moto history, but it's not really moto history. There was a big motocross race this weekend in 1974 at Snake River Canyon. It was, of course, the Evel Knievel jump where he did attempt in that bike or rocket, whatever you want to call it. He did attempt to jump across the canyon, 1,600 feet across, 500 feet deep. And, it was perhaps, it's the thing we all remember him for. It was probably also the biggest flop of all his stunts that he attempted, but it's the most unforgettable one, that's for sure. And that happened September 8th, 1974, Evel Knievel. And don't forget, we've got that book we're giving away, Finding Number 49. I hope you got your answer. Put in there in the comment section. I'll contact you when I check the comments, and we'll get you that book, whoever the first one was, to put in the name of what that machine was that Evel Knievel went across Snake River Canyon in, or tried to. I guess actually this is the part where I'm supposed to tell you the name of it. I apologize. The show is pre-recorded. We don't have everything exactly the way we want it. The name of the rocket was Sky Cycle 2. Sky Cycle 2 is the answer of what the name was for Evel Knievel's rocket. In the announcement section this week, Jordan, what do we got up first? Oh, Vintage Motocross Radio is going great. Every Sunday we've been doing live interviews. This past Sunday we had on Paul Stannard, who was from Strictly Hodaka fame and of course has gone on now to do so much more with Preston Petty products. Let's listen to some of the excerpts that we have from the show. And also we had a call in from Preston Petty himself. Let's take a listen, see what they had to say. When did the first Preston Petty fender actually roll off the production line? When did all that happen?
Well, the very first one, I think, was about January 1970. But they were the very first ones were not very good because I did not understand different types of plastic that there are available. I knew how to build do the design, the die cavity machine, but I didn't understand plastics or injection molding or that. So it took me, the first 6 months was a serious problem.
Paul, you had a great little museum up there. I remember seeing pictures of it with a lot of bikes on a second floor. Do you still own all those bikes?
Yeah, when I sold my the Strictly Hodaka business in 2000. I think it was June of 2016. I sold it to, I beg your pardon, 2018. I sold it to Terry Larson from Hodaka Parts. Terry's a great friend. I've known Terry for years, and I was out at the AIM Expo, and Terry had approached me down there to say, hey, he was buying Hodaka parts and just wanted to let me know, heads up. And I said at that point, why don't you buy me out too? Just kind of half joking. And we talked, and I ended up selling him the business. But when I did sell Terry the business with the licensing and the toolings and the parts and the trademarks and all of that, I asked to keep all of my memorabilia and then all of the bikes that I've got, either my personal race bikes or the museum bikes. And they're here right now, Joe, up in Sandgate, Vermont, in our kind of museum that we've got here.
I had a great time talking to Preston Petty for a few moments, and of course, Paul Stannard. I want to thank them both for getting on the phone with me this week at Vintage Motocross Radio. I will be making an announcement on who my guest is this coming Sunday on Vintage Motocross Radio. Right now, I want to tell you about another great opportunity. In 2016, when the first batch of fenders were running off the press at Preston Petty Products, 25 of them came off the assembly line. The first 20 were given away to family members and important people in the industry. There were 5 left. They are autographed. There are only 3 available. We have been making this offer to people every week here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Inbox me, and I will tell you how to get in touch with Paul Stannard if you want to buy one of these fenders. There's only 3 left. I'm sorry, there's only 2 left as of tonight. There'll only be 2 left. It comes with a letter of authenticity. All the proceeds go directly to Preston Petty himself. There's only 1 fender given away each week, and there's only 2 left right now. Thank you, Paul Stannard and Preston Petty, for all you do for us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Big news, big news. Kaplan America, my friend Ken Kaplan from the New England Motorcycle Museum now has a show. It premieres tonight on the Discovery Channel. Right here, Wednesday at 9/9 at 10 p.m. I think that's Eastern Standard Time. Kaplan America. Go check out my friend Ken Kaplan on his new show on Discovery, Kaplan America. I spoke to a friend of mine from Australia. It was last week. His name is Dave Smith. Dave Smith had informed me that sadly he had lost his son, Eli Smith. They are from Brisbane, Australia. Eli was just 19 years old. He was a great motocross rider, had a lot of friends down under, and Eli 776 is no longer with us. I wanted to send my condolences to my friend Dave Smith down in Brisbane for the loss of his son. What makes this tragedy even worse is something that no person should ever have to suffer in their life. Eli took his own life. Pay attention to what's going on in with your kids, folks. Even if there are no signs, take some time to talk to them, find out what's going on. Kids today live in a completely different world than we did. Suicides are they're out of hand, and they're always so sad, especially when it comes to teenagers. Once again, my condolences to my friend Dave Smith. T-shirts are still available from Vintage Motocross Q&A, $21.99, beautiful cotton shirts, got a Vintage Motocross logo across the front, and now they come with my autograph across the back. This is something Jordan has put together, so if you can, follow the link that is in the description of the show. Get yourself a T-shirt, $21.99. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available, and guys are seeing the results. Vinco, FastGuyStuff.com, Amsoil, Nightmare Racing, of course, Preston Petty Products. There's still room for you on the show. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, inbox me. I'll get you a proposal. We'll put something together for you in a budget, something that fits, and we'll get you some publicity here from Vintage Motocross Q&A. We're hitting well over 20,000 people a week at this point. And when you think about it, what could you do as a vendor on Facebook to hit 20,000 people a week? I don't think you can do much. I don't care how many pages you post on. I don't care how many posts you make on your own page. It's real difficult to hit 20,000 people. But we're doing it here at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'd like to help you promote your business as well. I want to thank all of our viewers tonight who tuned in to watch the show. I am Joe Abadi, and Gino, will you be joining me tonight? Come on, Gino. Here he is. Gino, he made it. Thanks, everybody, for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Jordan, come to home. Thanks for helping me pre-record the show, and thanks, everybody. Well, give us a listen on Sunday, Vintage Motocross Radio. See you then.